A very warm welcome to all of you today. Today is our ninth seminar in our seminar series, and a very good afternoon to all of you joining from UK and Europe. Good morning to the folks joining from the US. I saw a couple of registrations from Georgia and Atlanta. And good evening to all of you joining in from India, Southeast Asia, and a very late good evening to anyone joining from Australia and New Zealand. So today, let me introduce our seminar series, which is on the digital future for business and society, perspectives on AI challenges and opportunities. This is hosted jointly by Professor Yogesh Dwivedi, who is Professor of Digital Marketing and Innovation, founding director of the Emerging Markets Research Center, and co-director of research at the School of Management, Swansea University, Wales, UK. And our co-host is Professor Ramakrishnan Raman, Director, Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Pune, and Dean, Faculty of Management at Symbiosis International Deemed University. This seminar series is supported by the Center for Technology, Innovation, Management and Enterprise, the University of Kent, Digital Marketing and Analytics Special Industry Group, Academy of Marketing, Grenoble IAE Graduate School of Management, a Grenoble INP School of the University of Grenoble Arts, Swansea iLab, Innovation Lab at Swansea University, the e-business and the e-government special industry group at the British Academy of Management, and the UK Academy of Information Systems. To tell you a little bit about this seminar series, this is actually inspired by various perspectives on artificial intelligence and its transformative potential, which were presented in a recent perspective article by Dwivedi et al. 2019. AI undoubtedly offers a huge transformative potential for the augmentation and even potential replacement of human tasks and activities within a wide range of industrial, social, and intellectual applications. The pace of change for this AI technological age is staggering, and new breakthroughs in algorithmic machine learning and autonomous decision making actually create new opportunities for continued innovation. The impact of AI can be wide ranging and significant, with industries and sectors ranging from agriculture, finance, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, supply chain, logistics, utilities. All of them could be potentially disrupted by the onset of AI technologies. This seminar series will present various perspectives from a number of leading expert speakers to highlight the opportunities and challenges posed by the rapid emergence of AI. Allow me now to introduce to all of you our guest speaker for today, Professor Yanqing Duan. Professor Yanqing Duan is a professor of information systems and director of Business and Information Systems Research Center at the Business School, University of Bedfordshire, UK. Her principal research interest is the development and use of emerging ICTs and their impact on organizational performance, decision making, and knowledge transfer. She is a regular expert evaluator for various major funding bodies. Professor Duan has led and participated in many research projects on digital transformation and digital agriculture and aquaculture in collaboration with international, European, as well as UK partners. She has received many research grants from various funding sources such as European Commission, Innovate UK, UK Department for International Development, BBSRC, GISC, British Council, and many others. She has published over 240 peer-reviewed articles including papers in the European Journal of Operational Research, European Journal Information Systems, European Journal of Marketing, IEEE Transaction on Engineering Management, Information and Management, the Information Society Journal of Business Research, and Industrial Marketing Management. Professor Duan will share her thoughts with us today on how AI and human decision makers can work together for better decision making, emerging challenges, and research opportunities. Professor Duan, welcome to our seminar series. The floor is all yours.
Dear Professor Sandeep, thank you very much for your introduction. And also thank you for all the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts today. And thank you all. Okay, I am going to focus on my talk about the AI applications in decision making. I mean, I understand this theory has covered a quite wide range of AI-related emerging issues. So my talk is mainly focused on decision-making, okay? So what I'm going to cover in this 40 minutes talk, first, just very, very brief introduction to AI and decision-making. And then I would like to share some of my reflections from our previous research, because a lot of issues which happened maybe in the second wave of AI about 30 years ago still seems applicable even now. So I would like to share some of that feedbacks from that with you today. I think based on that, and also based on the recent research, I would like to highlight the challenges and most importantly, research opportunities in this sense, okay? I put these slides with a very nice picture that is actually one of our campuses in University of Bedfordshire. My office actually is here. So I really, the lockdown, we've all been stay home these days, and this is really what I miss. It's a nice campus. So
what a beautiful campus.
Yeah, okay. So anyone have opportunities to visit our university can have a chance to see this very nice campus, actually. Okay, so I think AI, we don't need an introduction here, but I just very, very briefly to outline some key relevant points. Yeah, AI has been in exist for many years. Yeah, but it's it started like 1950s, 60s. But why AI is getting so popular now? I mean, we all understand. I call it AI being revitalized due to big data, advanced algorithms, and most importantly, improved computer power and storage. I have my personal experience because I did research on AI 30 years ago with my PhD. Yeah, sounds I'm very old, but okay. So the take-up of the new AI in organizations is expanding. So AI is transforming every sector, there's no doubt. Yeah. So if I use the most recent findings from McKinsey's global survey on the state of AI, it reveals 50% of respondents report that their company have adopted AI in at least one business functions. Okay, so that is a most recent survey. However, there's another global survey conducted by MIT Sloan Management Review and BCG. It's also called like Global AI Survey. And those survey, both surveys covered like about 3,000 responses and covered many industry sectors and over 100 countries. Yeah. So the MIT and BCG survey revealed only 10% of companies obtained significant financial benefit with AI technologies. So these are the most recent number, but the 10% is not a very high number here. So we will talk about a little bit more from the reflections from their research. Okay. So because my talk is focused on decision making, so just briefly introduction to AI for decision making. I mean, AI was first actually emerged as a decision making machine. So it's like chess player. You play chess, you constantly make a decision which move you go. So we all say AI for decision making has been and will remain one of the most important applications of AI. Yeah. So AI has experienced up and downs. We call it AI spring and winter. I joined AI spring when I decided to do a PhD about more than 30 years ago. And at that time, I did see the limitations of AI, and AI to some extent didn't live to the heights we were expected at the time. However, this new wave of AI based on big data is claimed to be able to dealing with more complex tasks. Yeah, I mean, previously we said AI can't do the tasks that require cognitive capabilities. But now AI seems to be able to sense emotion, to make tacit judgment. So we argue AI can help employees to reach better decisions and to boost our analytical capabilities and even strengthen creativity. So AI is actually be able to do more than, like second wave. This, what if I can call it the third wave. Yeah. So, okay, because we're talking about decision making, I thought it might be helpful to just very briefly just bring some of the relevant theories in relation to decision making. I mean, decision making is a huge topic. Yeah, there are many theories from psychology, from other disciplines. But here I bring up some relevant theories, mainly from information system perspective. Yeah, because I have been doing research from information system and management perspective for years. So those are the theories in relation to decision making. And we talk about tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. I remember Professor John Edwards in his talk, he talked about, about explainability of AI. He talked about tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Yeah, I mean, AI used to be argued not very good of dealing with tacit knowledge. But I think all this new power given to AI made us to think again about how AI can be used for decision making. And so we have tacit knowledge, explicit knowledge. We also talk about intuitive and the rational decision-making style. Yeah. So rational is more like logical, analytical, reasoned style, and the intuitive is more gut feeling. Yeah. Or tacit based. And also we talk about decision-making process. The most well-known is Simon's 4 phases, ranging from intelligence, like business intelligence, you search the environment, trigger your need to make decision, to design the choices, and make the choice, and implement your decision, and evaluate it. Yeah. So the decision-making processes, this is more towards rational kind of process. Yeah. And the decision-making levels, we always talking about 3 levels: operational, technical, and tactical, and strategic. This is well known. This is all related to our understanding of AI for decision making. I will relate to this later on as well. And types of decisions. Again, this is very well known terms: unstructured decisions to structured decisions. So these are the relevant theories when we look at AI for decision making. Yeah. We all know, as human beings, we do have certain limitations when we make decisions. I mean, these are the examples actually. We, as human beings, we have limited mental power. Yeah, especially with this information overload error. I just found if I want to buy a mobile phone, too many choices. I just sometimes just tell me which one I should buy, and I will take it. So we have limited mental computational power. And also we are facing very high uncertainty, very complex circumstances. Yeah, and we have limited time. So this is just some examples. So in this case, we do constantly seeking help to make better decisions. Okay. So if I ask you the questions, I mean, if in the normal kind of seminar, I will ask people to raise hands, ask questions about your thinking of decision making. For example, say, would you like AI to make decisions for you without your intervention? I don't know. I can see, Sandy, you are shaking your hands. So I think, I did try this. I think most of people will say no. And in general, like I said, we make decisions without your intervention. That is, people will think, no. So if no, why? Yeah. Okay. So if I ask, would you like AI to assist you in making decisions, assist you? I mean, the answers most of the time say yes. You are not the only one. I mean, this is a case, yes. But how? In what kind of situation? What role? There's lots of other questions to follow after this. So this is exactly what we need to examine. Yeah. So this question, if I asked 30 years ago, people gave me this answer. But even now, you would expect the answer may change. But actually, if I talk about it later on about the research, it's still similar answer. I mean, AI is so powerful now, but why is still like this? So that's the things we need to understand, actually. Yeah. So 30 years ago, Professor John Edwards, who actually delivered a talk a few weeks ago, actually published a paper outlining the role of AI for decision making. Yeah, I mean, I use John's because as at the beginning, maybe people don't know, John was my PhD supervisor. So, John actually has been doing research in this area for years. So in 30 years ago, he outlined the role of AI in decision making could be assistant. I mean, in this case, so AI is just your assistant. You instruct AI do whatever you do, or search information for me, give me this data, or this kind of things. Or AI can be a critique. So you have decisions, they can evaluate, give you the feedback and critique. Or AI can give you second opinion. And you said, oh, this is the best one. Maybe I think maybe you should try another one. Or in a higher level, AI is expert. You respect AI. You ask AI, tell me what I need to do and explain why. Yeah. Or AI is like your teacher. You learn from AI and then you becoming better decision makers. And then the extreme case, okay, automation. You just let AI to make decisions for you without your intervention. Yeah. I mean, this cartoon says, if you want a second opinion, I will ask my computer. So, could be the case, actually, yeah. So this is about 30 years ago. I will reflect this again at near the end about the similar situation proposed by BCG and MIT survey, actually. So I would like to just share some reflections from our previous research, and I choose three kind of research I did. And the first one is experiments on the use of expert systems. And expert systems is a kind of artificial intelligence systems. And that one is we use expert system to manage a simulated manufacture company. No company will let you to do real experiments with AI. No company said, okay, I will agree to do experiment. Let AI manage my company, how it goes. That's quite impossible. So that's why we use the experiments. Yeah. So that's this actually done about 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, with my PhD. So I did experiments to use AI to manage a simulated company. Yeah. As I said, you can't let real company to do that. So these are competitive business game. AI actually replace the managers managing this company. So it's typical decision making using AI. And the second example is reflect a group of research. We developed in collaboration with the people in China. We developed and used expert system for aquaculture and agriculture, and to help farmers in, like say, disease diagnosis and management. And the third research actually was my PhD student research to understand the senior executives' views and perceptions on the use of personal intelligent agent. It's kind of personal AI actually, to help them process information and make decision. So they all focus on decision making. Okay. So I just want to share some kind of the reflections based on this. I mean, this screen just shows the publications we made actually. Yeah. So it's just showing all the way through. We have been doing research about understanding decision making, and all I want to say is the issues rise still same now even. Yeah. So for example, in this paper like published in 1992, one of them 1995, they all talk about using AI for decision making. One is used for as advisory, like an assistant role, and then also this paper, the one here is actually published in the European Journal of Information Systems. I could analyze the role in different levels of the organizational management. Yeah, the decisions actually covered a wide range in these experiments, from sales to production to marketing to procurement to R&D. You need to make a decision about price, materials, supply chain management. So it tries to reflect a real company situation. Okay. For the aquaculture export systems, we also use them to help the extensionists and farmers. And we learned quite a lot from our real application. This is a real application case. Yeah. So one of perspective, we try to understand knowledge transfer. Yeah. How use of AI can help transfer knowledge from expert to non-expert. Yeah. And a third research I'm trying to share here is more a kind of qualitative research. We did focus groups and interviewed senior executives. We say, okay, just ideally, we will give you an idea, AI software. What do you want from it? Or if we want to design one, what is your idea criteria? So this AI can do whatever you want, but tell me what you want him to do, or her to do, agent, yeah, what to do, okay? So this is another research. We published papers in the expert system with applications. So all this research, I highlight some of the interesting feedbacks here, which is still useful in guide our current work. Yeah. So this is just very small examples about benefit we collected from our users. Yeah. Say the first one, when we do the experiments, the AI seems doing very good at operational and tactical levels, but has limitations at strategic level. Is this still the case now? Yes, I think so. It's still some research still show, it's quite difficult, challenging to use AI to make strategic decisions. Yeah, and also the users mentioned the system helped to make sense of mass of data. This is 30 years ago. Yeah, we all talk about big data now. It seems this is very important benefit, make sense of mass of data. Yeah, the system was very good at getting me out of trouble quickly. This is experiments we gave to students to use expert system as an advisory system. Yeah, so that also helped us reverse some poor decisions and get us on the right track. Good one. Yeah, and also students say, although it's time consuming to use AI for advice, but we would make decisions and compare them to those offered by the AI. So this is like second opinion or critique. Yeah. So the students think we make a decision, we want to hear what AI say as well. We can compare and also add a different perspective and helped us to keep our objective quality in mind. Yeah. So that's some feedback from users about benefit, but most importantly is about the problems and the issues here now, okay? So human-machine relationship in terms of this, in my experiment 30 years ago, this AI advisory system said was not able to advise in view of what our aim and strategy was. So they think, oh, you don't understand me, you don't understand our strategy. Okay. And also for one period, they said, we didn't agree with the direction the system suggested. Okay. And in the middle, we wanted to pursue other aims not covered by the system, which lead to problem. Also, if AI agent is used, it shouldn't become a barrier to information flowing to me. This is another work we did with executives. They just said, if I use AI and as automation to filter in systems, I don't want them stop some information flowing to me. This AI machine relationships, personal development concern actually has been one very critical concern, feedback actually. So people, the student, this is not a student, it's farmers actually say, I'm not a slow learner, but we have to learn by doing, okay? And also, they said we had a hiccup in our decision making. This system helped sort us out. However, I feel we should have done this ourselves. So that's, in sum up, we want to learn from our own mistakes. Yeah. And so the AI doesn't improve our management skills because they just said, I want to learn myself. I want to learn from my own mistakes. There are some other things about how human and machine communicate. Okay. So one says the computers don't speak in a way a real expert does. I'm puzzled with the suggestions. If you say 75% possibility of having something, what should I do? So they just say, okay, the computer is still machine, I can't communicate. And also the learning abilities of AI. We always found something is not covered by the computer. And we have to work together to make the system, because once the system not cover something, it's like dead technology, they said. How to make a dead technology into a live one. So the AI constantly learn from the situation and adapt to that. Yeah. So there's still some issues you can see rise from the users. And also with other research, I just highlight with diagrams about executive design criteria for idea software. The key message from this diagram, the key message, yeah, is, on the bottom line, this is about automation, the level of intelligent support from low to high. The design criteria from low to high on the left side. It looks like the executives, the highest design is they want the system usability. They want the system to be personalization, controllability. So they want the higher level is usability. The lower level is automation. Yeah. So this line. So the key message is managers want more control rather than high automation. This is based on our investigations with executives. That is the key message. This has been done about 15, 20 years ago as well, this key message. Yeah. So there's a recent research just published in 2021 in the Computers in Human Behavior, also highlighted when they done 5 empirical studies with over 1,000 managers. They found human managers don't want to exclude machine entirely from managerial decision-making, but instead prefer a partnership in which humans have a majority vote. Yeah. So it seems managers strongly oppose a partnership in which machine provide the most input into the decision-making process. See, even 30 years ago, we have the concern, and now the recent study with managers still reflect the perceptions and resistance in using AI in managerial decision-making. Okay. However, we argue AI has been revitalized, and like it or not, a new human-machine symbiosis is on the horizon. So the question remains how humans and the new artificial intelligence be complementary in decision-making. how human and machines can work symbiotically together to augment and enhance each other's capabilities. Okay. The most recent global survey from MIT and BCG actually highlighted the key for the success. Yeah. So the key to success with AI is human-machine collaboration. Yeah. So collaboration instead of competition, of course. Yeah. So we understand that is the right way, but a lot of issues remain. How, why, and to what extent, in what situation, in what mode, how to measure the benefits. There are lots of issues remain. Yeah. So in the MIT and BCG survey, they also highlighted the different modes of the AI machine collaboration. So I listed this in comparison with John's 30 years ago proposed AI role here. Yeah. So in this survey, they highlighted 5 kind of human-machine interaction or collaboration patterns. So you can have AI generates insights. Human use them in our decision process. It's like assistant, yeah. And human generates, AI evaluates. It's like a critique, yeah. And AI recommends, human decides. So human in control, AI provide assistant. AI decides, human implements, AI in control. Or to the the AI completely control. AI decides and implement. You just without no intervention, you leave the things to AI. Yeah. So they have promoted these 5 modes. I mean, I have to say similar to what John proposed 30 years ago as well. Okay. So we conclude in this way, human AI collaboration for smart decision making. We have smart thing for everything, and we know people talking about smart decision making. Yeah. How can we achieve human AI collaboration for smart decision making? So we are facing this argument, automation versus augmentation. Yeah. And someone even argue AI augmentation in the context of organizational decision making is the future of AI in decision making. So I would like to just summarize. I mean, there are lots of opportunities, lots of challenges. I just here just explain. These are some examples of the emerging research opportunities here. Yeah. Okay. So AI for decision making at the personal level. At the personal level, yeah, we argued, okay, human-machine collaboration is the way forward. Yeah. So however, they still need to understand how this can be done. Yeah. Modes of human AI collaboration and their application and effects depending on the situations. So the moods can change, the situation can change, but we need more in-depth understanding and examination, yeah, to understand how they work. Yeah. And the factors influencing the acceptance and avoidance of using AI. All this may depend on the decision-making style. You are rational or intuitive ones, the strategic and the operational ones. Yeah, this all depend on a lot of situations. And so maybe if I'm more like gut feeling decision maker, I may less reluctant to use AI. Yeah, and also impact on decision making behavior. If I'm lazy one, I may just overtrust AI, which may cause some other issues actually. Yeah, and another very important one is mutual learning. How AI can learn from human, how human can learn from AI. It's easy to say, but it's quite difficult to do actually, yeah, based on our previous research. I do have a very big question, and I wrote in another joint paper with Yogesh and other collaborators about the AI's role in the decision making to deal with pandemic. It's disappointing to some extent because we are facing just huge challenge. But you can see all the decision makers at a higher level, they made mistakes. And I was wondering if we all argue AI is a superpower, why couldn't the AI help? Yeah. So how AI can rise to the challenge to empower human decision maker? Especially, at the beginning of pandemic, the incomplete information is a huge problem because we don't know, high uncertainty, high risk. But can AI do better in the future crisis? Yeah. So there's still a lot to learn doing research about AI and the pandemic. Decision making, I'm talking about. AI has been used in many other areas in the pandemic management, which has done very well, actually. But in terms of decision making for helping, let's say, senior managers or politicians, there's still a lot of challenges there. Yeah. So at the operational level, how AI is being used and coexist in organizations. Yeah. And what are the critical factors for the success? Some doing well, some not well. 10% are gaining significant financial benefit. What about the 90%? What about the rest? Yeah. So what are the critical success factors? And also AI, people will change and is changing the organizational culture. Yeah. And even decision-making process and the hierarchical structure. AI doesn't understand the hierarchy. It doesn't understand the structure. So how this may be impact on this organizational behavior, yeah, and organizational learning as well. So organizational behavior in the area of the AI, okay. So and other areas as well. These are just examples. Dark side of AI. Yes, everyone talk about dark side as well. I think it's completely true for decision making as well. Yeah. Will AI replace managers? That's why managers have a resistance. They all fear, if AI can do my job, what I'm going to do. This is not for just workers, like flow, like robots replace workers. Will it replace managers? Yeah, we have to address the fears. Personal development concern, this is also, if I leave AI to do things, I lose my creativity and learning ability. Yeah. Risks over trusting AI. Concerns of AI bias. I think that some talks covered this about bias, explainability, the reasoning process, ownership and control, legal issues. If AI made a decision, who is to be prosecuted if something wrong. Yeah. And AI accessibility, equal opportunity. If I have AI, I can access AI, I make a better decision. How could other people also have equal opportunity to access it? So many issues here as well. We call it dark side of the AI, yeah? Okay, the last one, also in terms of methodology, in terms of theoretical development, there's still a lot of need to do, yeah? We still need to think about conceptual and theoretical advancement for explaining and measuring. How we measure when we say make a better decision? How do you measure it? How do you, know? How do you know? Yeah. So that's lots of issues about measuring the use, benefit, and the impact. A lot of intangible ones. Yeah. And also, I really would like to see more, rich empirical evidence. We have surveys, but surveys have limitations. We need to have much in-depth insights. Case studies, longitudinal research, experiments, simulations, all this much give different kind of perspective. Yeah. So that is still a lot we can do. I did experiments 30 years ago. I could think maybe we, still possible to do some experiment in the area of more advanced stage to see how it works. Yeah. So I just give some examples to highlight the opportunities. I'm sure there are more there, but this is just examples I'm trying to share with everyone here. So I would like to acknowledge my collaborators, because part of this is based on the research with Professor John Edwards from Aston University and Professor Yorgos in Swansea University. I would like to thank their contributions as well. And I can't finish finish my talk without promoting our papers. John, Yorgos, we all published a paper focusing on AI in decision-making in the International Journal of Information Management. So there are more details if you are interested to the talk. Yeah. Okay. And references here. Okay, thank you very much for your attention and the question.
Thank you very much, Professor Duan, for that very lucid narrative on that so important intersection set between AI and human beings. And I particularly enjoyed your use of one specific word in your entire presentation, where you used the word symbiosis, which is the name of our university itself.
Notice that, yeah.
Thank you. Very, very interesting insights where you referred to the positives as well as the negatives, and how they can possibly help us. And you kind of took us through that. Would we want to rely completely on AI, or would we want AI to assist us? And your point about the pandemic is very well taken. Given the mayhem that has kind of happened in many parts of the world, AI certainly could have helped in a variety of areas, and one really wonders why the powers that be did not draw upon the excellent expertise which is already available in many of the developed countries of the world. But that said, let's move now. I can see that the chat box is buzzing with a few questions. So let me pick them up and then share them with you. So we have a question from Annie Tubaji, who's from Swansea University. So Annie says, thanks, Professor Duan, for the very interesting and timely talk. Could you elaborate a bit more on what is known from your research and the literature, how the use of AI affects the decision-making skills of people over time? We have cars and other transportation devices. We certainly have more obesity. What will happen with our brains and decision-making if we have AI to think for us?
Thank you. Thank you for the interesting question. That is one big issue actually about our skills and where we are using AI. And there are positive ones definitely as well, and the negative one. The positive ones, by using AI, people actually do improve those skills. And I mean, examples with like advisory system, yeah. Before, the call center people, when people, they all supported by some kind of AI system. When you ask questions like chatbot as well, you type your inquiries, it's all AI helping them to give the answers actually. But gradually, some staff actually say, this is based on my literature review, actually gradually they learn by using, initially they don't know they search the AI, then gradually learn they don't have to use search AI, they can answer directly themselves, they learn from that. But there are also some issues, people, when we do experiments, the students feel the using AI slowed their learning process because they can't learn from their own mistakes. And they feel if they don't learn by this way, when they face another different situation, they still make those mistakes. So it's not a straight answer, say, yes and no. Have I answered that question?
I think so, Professor Duan. And you also briefly referred to in your talk playing chess. There have been huge advances in computer-based chess players, and it takes the system, the AI system, just a few hours to learn. And then you can put the champions, the grandmasters of the world in front of the computer, and chances are the computer wins, sheerly because of the volume of information and data that is contained.
Yeah, I think so. The first time when the AI beat the chess player, I think it's 1997, Deep Blue. And
yes.
I'm very excited to wake up in the morning. That is the first time human be beaten by machine.
That's right. That's right. And if I recall, that was the existing champion of the world at that point in time, Garry Kasparov. He got beaten by the Deep Blue IBM supercomputer playing chess.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful example. Just to share a use case, Professor Duan and our participants, I teach this case in one of my classes. There's a very interesting case study by Unilever, where they have started using AI for recruitment of fresh college graduates all over the world. And they ran this as a pilot in 2018-2019 on 250,000 candidates. So they use two pieces of software. I think they are called as HireView and Prometric. and they used AI to do the entire process of long listing, short listing, CV verification from the LinkedIn profiles, video assessment based upon keywords, intonations, and body language, and finally ended up with giving a shortlisted set of candidates to the hiring managers, who then physically interviewed each person. And they cut the cycle time from 4 months to 4 weeks. And recruiter time, they brought it down by 75%. So it kind of alludes to some of the aspects that you referred to about how different use cases where humans and AI are working together, it can actually not just help the decision making, but perhaps even reduce the process cycles.
Yeah, that's a very good example. Maybe for some of the mode here, AI decide, human implements. So the AI gives the shortlist, but in this case, humans still have the final say. Yeah, they have to make or AI recommend, human decide. The only concern I may have is because AI is use algorithm, is a machine program. I just wondering for a long time whether people will learn from this program, they play with it.
Indeed, one hopes they will learn, and we hope that the learning can be helped by the AI-based processes. So, Professor Duan, our next question is from Galina Kondrateva. So, Galina Kondrateva is asking us, thank you for the very interesting talk, Professor Duan. I am wondering, have you done some research on regulations that should be updated for protection in case of AI biases? Is it still always the responsibility of the human in case of wrong decisions? Example, broadly discussed AI recruitment system that discriminated some candidates.
This is a very,
and
very...
I'm assuming this question is not related to my case study.
I think this is a very, very important question and difficult to answer as well. Yeah, I mean, in general, we definitely need strengthened regulation with AI applications. And but I think there are still unknown, and in terms of this area, we haven't seen any big case about the potential issues. I mean, the issues with legal side. I mean that on the one side, AI, they're sometimes hand in hand actually.
Yes.
Yeah? So if the regulation will improve to protect, protect the society in terms of the legal side. If I understand the question right, is that
Absolutely.
The regulation for AI applications? Is that right?
That's right. That's right. So she's asking whether the regulation should be updated for protection in case of AI biases.
I mean, the answer is definitely yes.
And there is perhaps another angle to think about here, which is when we are actually creating the AI system. I mean, AI basically is a set of rules, a rule-based system into which learning is kind of superimposed as a layer. And when we are creating those systems, perhaps we can even program in the removal of bias or to make sure that biases don't operate. In fact, in this very same Unilever case study that I talked about, they ran a report after the usage of the AI, and they compared it with the past years where human beings had made the decisions. And they actually found that they had hired their most diverse batch across almost 50 years of recruitment, thanks to the fact that they had built in the elimination of bias in those AI programming rules. So it was quite a fascinating case. And if any of our participants are interested, they can just Google Unilever, AI, recruitment, and it will throw up the case study for them with the complete detail. So I just thought I'll share that in the context of this question.
That's a very good example, actually. Yeah. So
thank you.
Instead of AI bias, but AI actually can learn because AI is to process huge amount of data to eliminate or to minimize the bias. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So our next question, Professor Duan, is from Eleni Liu. So Eleni is asking, thank you so much for this fascinating talk. 4 exclamation marks. Too many questions and too little answers. I wanted your thoughts on the issue of transparency. As a consumer, I do not feel that I am ever aware of who has access to my data and how it is being used. High-tech companies are overriding privacy and human rights experts. Can you tell us from your own research whether governments are monitoring the use of data by high-tech companies or whether high-tech companies are too powerful actors to control?
Oh, that's a very big question again. And I would like to maybe, others you can share as well. This is a big issue. On the one hand, we want to enjoy or benefit from the technology. Yeah. On the other hand, we want to protect our privacy. And the technology needs data to be powerful to deliver the benefit. But on the other hand, there is a limit, there are boundaries, how you can access the data. So it's like a trade-off. But definitely governments have a much strong control about privacy, what data you can use. And also, I said it's a trade-off or the balance between and the society, what kind of data you want to give in terms to gain from that. Yeah. So this is a huge issue, again, data protection. And there are lots of problems, I know, in that sense, especially AI. I mean, if I want to make a very personal information, personal, if I want to help you in a very personal way, so I said I want to AI to help me to buy a property or buy a mobile phone. They maybe ask a lot of the personal data of myself. And so there's always dilemma, and what you have to decide what you want to give and what you want to gain. But in the higher level, yes, definitely, it's a concern.
Thank you. Our next question is from Giles Robertson, and I'm saying Giles in French. It would be Gilles, so I'm assuming it's Giles. So Giles is asking, building on regulation questions, Stephen Hawking and Tesla's Elon Musk have warned that AI could ultimately lead to the destruction of humanity if the right checks and balances are not put in place. Do you have a view on these systems could, would, should work?
That's another very big question. Yeah, I know there are very different. I used to start the talk with a very contradictory, marks. I mean, Elon Musk is another, the figure. There are very optimistic and very pessimistic views. Yeah, and I'm more towards optimistic side. In this sense, I don't think the AI will destroy the human future or this thing. So I don't know how to answer this kind of question, actually. Yeah.
Well, I would certainly tend to agree with you, Professor Duan, because human beings are building AI. So if the human mind is so devious that they are trying to actually program killing mechanisms, then God help us. Yes, Professor Yogesh, please do come in.
Yeah, I guess it's like any other weapon that we have, like atomic bomb. Yeah.
Yes.
So if you want to use it, of course, it will destroy it without any second. But same atomic energy being used for different constructive purposes.
Absolutely, power generation.
Yes, absolutely, and AI is no different. If human being will use it for constructive purposes, it will be really productive and helpful. But of course, same time, it has power to destroy. So if you want to use it for bad purposes, it will also have similar effectiveness in that area. So it all depends upon how human being going to actually use it, and that's where AI governance comes into play.
Sure.
It's very important that governments of various countries and at international level, AI governance is clearly articulated and controlled. So yeah, just wanted to say that, and just also want to add in Annie's comments earlier about if if human being using AI and what effect that may have on humans' ability to make decisions by themselves. I think this is an area where definitely we need research. Now lots of companies are implementing AI, lots of places are AI being implemented. It's nice to do some empirical research or some experimental research, in fact, to see actually what happens when people uses AI after few months, after a few years. If it's experimental research, then after a few maybe control things, what will happen? And that kind of research will be definitely well received by journals. At the moment, most of the things that we talk about is anecdote. We don't know how things, because things now started happening in real. In 80s and 90s, lots of research done, but it didn't go into actual implementation. But now implementation is happening. If you go on LinkedIn and search for people with artificial intelligence title, you will now find almost every company has employed someone who has AI role. Yeah. So AI manager, AI implementer, AI something. And it's amazing to see how fast things are moving, actually. So I think lots and lots of scope for empirical research. As a journal editor, I can see I'm receiving article every week, few articles on AI, and Professor Duan actually is the most helpful as an AE to handle many of those articles. So lots of scope to do research and publish on this topic, actually. I just wanted to highlight this. Yeah, thank you.
So we are at the top of the hour, but Professor Duan, maybe we can take one or two questions more with your permission.
Yes, of course. Yes, you're welcome.
Okay. So we have a question from Xinwan Chang. So Xinwan is asking, thank you for your great presentation, Professor Duan. Just one question for recommendation system, which is an example for AI. And not new and widely used in different sectors. What is the new development for recommendation agents to date? Is the first question that Xinwan is asking.
Oh, so, I mean, maybe we are not aware there are lots of recommendation AI systems exist. I mean, I mentioned examples about like chatbot and call centers. I mean, these days AI has been embedded. AI is invisible now. It's embedded in almost all digital systems. Yeah, and as Unilever's recruitment one is a typical also to some extent is recommendation system. So this recommendation system can from lower level intelligence to a very higher level intelligence, and it is a very important part of the current modern digital system now, especially like the customer service management, the customer relationship management. This AI make recommendations. You know, sometimes we receive the discount vouchers, discount emails. They all like recommendation system by AI. They are recommendation systems to managers. They give them the recommendation. Yeah. So recommendation in different forms, different level of intelligence, but it's all very important part of the current AI applications now. And maybe it's the most important ones as well, yeah.
Perhaps even the humble Amazon.com portal based on the purchases we've made, they start making choices, and then we start seeing ads appearing of products like the ones that we purchased.
Yeah.
So it goes on. In fact, Shinwan has written a follow-up question. Since Google will block third-party cookies in 2022, how does this affect AI systems to support consumer decision making?
We need ways to see. I mean, if they block, and yeah, it's difficult if you don't have, you cannot access data.
Right. I suppose they might be limited to the data of actual purchases or the browsing data that they capture, because their system can capture which pages we visited, how long we spent on which page, what products we browsed through, staying with the Amazon example. So perhaps they'll figure out more intelligent ways of analyzing the data that we human beings are creating every second.
It's always a trade-off, yes. You know, what you can give or what you can get, actually, yes.
Absolutely. Professor Yogesh, any last thoughts?
No, Professor Bhattacharya. I just want to say a big thank you to Professor Duan and to yourself for very well coordinating and facilitating the session. And my apologies that I could not be in the session for all the time, but I can already see that loss of engagement. So thank you so much, Professor Duan and Professor Bhattacharya. And I think Professor Raman is not there, but my thanks also goes to him. Thank you very much.
Sure. So Professor Duan, heartfelt thanks from all of us for a very lucid and a very incisive narrative on perhaps this might be actually a very, very important part, that how do human beings and AI interact together? Who takes precedence? How do decisions get made? Do we quote unquote employ AI as the most intelligent employee in a department and still leave the final decision making to humans? And at what levels? And like Professor Yogesh rightly mentioned, you can use a tool for good or for bad. And we of course hope that it gets used better and better for good purposes. So thank you very much for a wonderful narrative, Professor Duan. And I would also like to thank our co-hosts, Professor Yogesh, Professor Raman, our dear participants who made the discussion extremely lively with their conversations, with their questions. In fact, I could see in the chat box that even before we opened up for questions, lots of comments were flying back and forth, encouraged by the points that you were making in your talk, Professor Duan. So thank you, dear participants. It was absolutely wonderful to have all of you here. And for all participants, I must mention that this was the 9th talk. We shall have our next seminar on the 24th of March at 1 o'clock UK time. This will be by Dr. Paul Walton from Capgemini of UK. And he will be sharing with us successful transformation with AI. I must also thank our wonderful IT support team led by Rajesh Bagewadi, who have enabled the entire infrastructure for the smooth conduct of all our seminars. And last but not the least, Professor Duan, we actually have my institute, SIBM Pune's student team called iSmart, who have peeped into our session. And what they do is they capture snapshots of our speakers. And usually within a few minutes of the seminar ending, we sent out a few thank you electronic frames, e-frames, just as a small token of appreciation. If you visited us, they would actually walk up to you as you're coming down from the stage, and they would hand you a photo frame with your picture on it. If you visited us in SIBM Pune. So we'll send that electronically. So thank you once again to Professor Duan, our co-hosts, our participants, and it's been a wonderful session. Looking forward to more such seminars. We have, I think, another 6 of them scheduled. So looking forward to those. Thank you all.